Welcome to the Vault Studios Fantasy Football Podcast, your one-stop shop for all fantasy football info. Here are your hosts.
Welcome back to the Vault Studio Fantasy Football Podcast. 4 weeks of the NFL season are in the bag, and with me to talk about Week 5, look ahead to what is going on, and reflect on Week 4 is my co-host Corey. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, Lewis. Fresh off a little steak vacation with the fam. So here we go, talking about fantasy football this week. So go.
That's it. Did you have to ask written permission from Dictator McGowan there to be able to leave your home?
No, we just went 3 hours south of Big State.
Oh, dear me. Hopefully soon those borders open up for you and you can see some family.
Yeah,
actually go somewhere outside of WA. Go somewhere on holiday that isn't a mine.
Oh, shots fired.
All right. As always, we've got a jam-packed show, so we'll get moving right away. And a few interesting transactions have happened this week in the NFL, worth talking about before we dive into our rapid reactions, look back and look forward for each of the games and give our notable takeaways. The first one being another running back is injured. Bears running back David Montgomery looks set to miss 4 to 5 weeks with a knee injury. Fortunately for the Bears and for his fantasy owners, it's not season ending. And he did give you a great week despite leaving the game hurt. He got you 2 touchdowns. He was one of the top running backs on the week. But he's going to leave a huge hole in your side because Montgomery had been one of the better fantasy running backs this year. Corey, what's your takeaway for this? Obviously, Damien Williams is going to be stepping in his place, who, looked pretty good. Looked like he had a bit of juice in the leg, scored a touchdown. Do you think this massively impacts the offense, or is Williams going to be a pretty reliable starter for your fantasy teams?
I think we've seen this before with Williams. I think he's very capable of taking over the reins for now. I think maybe Montgomery is, I don't know, if you want to put percentage on it, 15% better player than he is. I just think, he's been in a situation before. We've seen him produce well in Kansas City. So
Playoff Damien gets a chance to ride again.
I think this is a good situation for him to be in. So tough for Montgomery owners, especially if you didn't want to spend up on Fab to get Damien Williams, which is understandable. There are some other options out there that are kind of under the radar if you missed out on Damien Williams.
Yeah, who are you looking at some of those under the radar options?
Well, obviously, there's like the Samaje Perines of the world. There's the Alex Collins of the world. Guys like that. And if you're looking like super deep, I wouldn't mind taking like a stab at Malcolm Brown as well. He's been getting a lot of red zone carries. Like if you're just looking for a touchdown here or there, that's an interesting name. But yeah, I think the Alex Collins obviously is a little bit still under the radar, especially if you're like in a shallower league, like 10-team, 12-team league. You might be able to pick him up on the waiver wire still, because I know I picked him up in a 10-team league. He was just there. So, he's still possibly there on your waiver wire.
Yeah, and he looks like he had some juice, had a real nice touchdown run in week 4. Alex Collins did. And as you said, it's difficult to put a percentage on it, but I don't think Damien Williams is too much worse than David Montgomery. And Justin Fields has now been named the starter. I think that's great news for Williams. Getting that mobile quarterback in there, they're going to look to utilize the option game. And so I think that's going to do wonders for Damien Williams and get him some opportunities and create some space for him at the line of scrimmage. The other quite big news is that former Defensive Player of the Year and standout cornerback Stefan Gilmore has been traded from the New England Patriots to the Carolina Panthers for a 2023 6th-round draft pick. He's the second cornerback that Carolina have gone out and acquired after they traded a 3rd-round pick for former first-rounder Carlos Henderson from CJ Henderson.
Yeah.
Henderson. CJ Henderson, from the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yep.
They also spent a first-round pick on J.C. Horn this year, who's out for a couple of months potentially with a broken foot. But getting these two cornerbacks in, especially not having to allow Henderson to sort of take number one duties with Stefan Gilmore expected to be back this week, this is great for the Carolina Panthers secondary.
Yeah, it's a really good signing for them. Obviously, Stefan Gilmore played his college ball in South Carolina.
He lives next door to the GM.
North Carolina, but Carolina Panthers. Nonetheless, so it is a good signing. It'll bolster their secondary, which on the weekend looked like their run defense needed some work. So we'll see what happens with the Carolina Panthers. That defense was ranked number 1 when they ran up against Dallas this week. So I definitely think it helps having a veteran guy in there that's very capable of shutting down another team's top receiver. I think you have to keep that on the back of your mind when your favorite team comes up against the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So let's move on now. Let's get through these games of week 4. And another injury, and we'll move this parlay to this game, was Joe Mixon. He got a low ankle sprain. He's considered week to week, which is just a shame for those who've drafted Joe Mixon. He's putting together a decent season, probably underperformed expectations to this point, especially in the last couple of weeks. The first 2 weeks looked really, really good, and that usage has slid off a bit, and he's now banged up. I know you mentioned Samaje Perine before. The name I'm interested in picking up and potentially starting moving forward will be the rookie Chris Evans, who was drafted. I think he was drafted late this year. He might have been an undrafted free agent. And he really excels in the passing game. Obviously, those high-value touches in PPR scoring. And I believe the offensive coordinator said he was the best pass-catching running back he'd ever seen. Now, I know that's a little bit. I know that's a little bit of coach speak, but he certainly has some talent. And for anyone who's rostered Joe Mixon consistently over the years, the sight of another running back on the Cincinnati Bengals wearing number 25 getting on the field is just a thorn in your side, because it was Gio Bernard for years, and now it's Chris Evans. And I think he could have some value in if Mixon is to miss time in these next few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. And I guess my takeaway from that Bengals-Jags game was just obviously the CJ Uzomah sighting.
Yes.
Where'd that come from? Obviously, no T. Higgins, and Uzomah was the biggest beneficiary of that. He had played a very good game, and Joe Burrow was finding him all over the place. So if you're looking for a tight end streamer, CJ Uzomah is not a bad guy to do it with.
No, he's certainly not. If you are, maybe you had Logan Thomas, who's going to miss a few weeks. CJ Uzomah is someone you could pick up and potentially stream and get a little bit of action out of. Let's move on now to this Jets-Titans game, which was one of the worst games of football I've seen in a long time. The Titans were stymied without Julio Jones, without A.J. Brown, and really they couldn't get it going. I unfortunately played Nick Westbrook Ikine in a few leagues. Process was right. He got 9 targets. Unfortunately, the result didn't pan out. Tannehill missed him on a few. I think he had a drop, and it was Chester Rogers who
a lot of junk time now.
A lot of junk time, made hay, but the Jets won this game. The Titans really had a nightmare. The Jets got their first win. My big takeaway from this game, though, is that Jameson Crowder should be in lineups moving forward. He's constantly underrated in PPR leagues. He plays exclusively out of the slot, has a good matchup. He went 7 for 61 and a score. And if this Jets offense continues to improve, Crowder will put up some decent numbers. And he was a league winner for some people last year. He certainly helped you get into the playoffs. There were games where he put up absolutely monster numbers out of the slot. And with Corey Davis on the outside, Elijah Moore projected to be an outside guy, I don't think anyone else is going to be really competing for slot snaps with Jameson Crowder, who is a consummate professional and restructured his contract to stay in New York this season.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I picked him up in a couple leagues. Jameson Crowder is always underrated. I love having him on my roster. He's similar to like Jarvis Landry type later in the season because someone will drop him. He's probably dropped now actually because he's hurt. So it's like having those kind of guys that just get you steady production week after week, and then when they get a touchdown, it's like, wow, there's 20 points right there. So
Right.
You got to be happy with that. My takeaway from this is Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson played. He had a couple throws in this game that were ridiculous. I like him long term in Dynasty. He was always going to show this side of him because their first, I think, 3 weeks were brutal schedule-wise. Like pass defense is like it's just a nightmare. So once he starts getting these easier matchups, he's going to look better than he has the first 3 weeks. So I like that. I think the arrow's pointing up on him. So if there's a squeamish owner out there in Dynasty that you can take advantage of, go ahead and pull trigger.
Yeah, he seems to have the right mentality and isn't fazed by the mistakes or the growing pains. I think this was expected coming from not having played a great deal in college and especially not a great level of competition, being drafted high on a bad roster with the Jets, new coaching staff, questionable offensive line, difficult schedule to start the season. But we can see that he's growing and evolving week by week in front of our eyes because of this, taking fewer sacks, throwing fewer interceptions. And I think it's been good for his development. And I think that's a testament to his mentality and the coaching staff as well, who are giving him the freedom to continue to go back and throw the football. And they're not just going, well, let's take it out of his hands or benching him or anything like that. They're doing everything they can to make sure that Zach Wilson beds in well in New York. Bears-Lions game. Obviously, it was exciting to see Justin Fields start and have a whole week of game planning, and the offense looked completely different. It was night and day. So obviously, big improvements, and I thought Fields looked pretty good. His fantasy output wasn't great, but there was a whole bunch of rushing touchdowns. I think all the Bears touchdowns came on the ground, I believe. I don't think Fields threw for a score, or if he did, it was just the one, but I don't think he did. But he looked good. He made some big time throws. Finally, Allen Robinson got a couple of deep balls thrown his way. But my big takeaway was Darnell Mooney, who was burning guys deep, looked excellent, and him and Fields seemed to be on the same page with the deep ball, getting that timing. And he was dropping balls right in the breadbasket of Darnell Mooney, who was one of the better, if not the best, rookie deep threats last season. He was one of my sleepers coming into the year, and it's nice to see him get on the same page with Justin Fields early in his Bears career and has now been named the starter moving forward.
Yeah, I can, obviously I agree with that. I had Darnell Mooney in one of my buy sections in one of my articles I just wrote. So
nice.
A couple weeks ago. So definitely agree with that. As for everything else, that Khalif Raymond, I kind of gave out his prop before the game started, and he was at 29.5 yards. He ended up getting 5 targets in this game. He had 2 touchdowns, 53 snaps out, which was second most on the team. Just keep an eye on him. Don't run out and grab him or anything, especially in deep leagues. He's probably still available, but he's an interesting guy. He's super tiny. He's he's in the huddle. He's just like this little guy. He's but they just don't have, a go-to kind of option. They actually looked for him on one of his touchdowns. It was like a plan play for him to get out in the flat, and they throw it to him, and he's, beats everyone to the pylon. He's not like the most physical receiver of all time, but he is very fast. And I think just keep an eye on him the next couple of weeks and see how this whole Detroit wide receiver situation pans out, because I think they're going to be behind in most games, and the Goff's going to be throwing it around. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we're really waiting for one of those receivers to step up and make a claim as the number one target behind TJ Hawkinson. Amon-Ra St. Brown's had his moments.
Yeah. Amon-Ra had 8 targets in this game, which is what you want to see. And he's a rookie. He's going to continue to get better. So
that's true.
Going to be,
that's true.
He's even worth it keeping an eye on the next couple of weeks. See if the target share kind of stays there. If he can continue to get 8 targets, I wouldn't mind picking him up either. So someone's is going to step up out of that group, at least a little bit, and just keep an eye on it because that wide receiver 3, 4. Like Chris Harris says, the wide receiver 3 of infinite sadness. One of those guys will be playable, especially during bye weeks.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Let's move on now to the Dolphins and Colts game. And surprisingly, Marlon Mack played in this game. It broke before that he was going to be inactive because they were looking to seek a trade for him, but he did end up being active, getting some carries, getting a bit of running this game. But I do think they're going to find a trade partner. Both parties want to move on. Mack wants a fresh start. The Colts want to get something in return. I think a deal gets done in the next week or two here. My big takeaway is he looked good, but trade for Jonathan Taylor. Do what you can to get Jonathan Taylor on your roster because he's right now the running back 20, but he's the running back 12 in weighted opportunities, and that's with this sort of murky 3-headed committee. In the last couple of weeks, he's been just as involved in the passing game as Nyheim Hines. There's this idea that Jonathan Taylor isn't involved in the passing game at all, but he's averaging nearly 4 targets a game, which combined with the carries he's getting, and if he's a home run hitter, is more than enough. So. And then on top of that, they for the rest of the season, the Colts are going to face the 3rd softest run defense according to Sharp Football Stats. So he's going to get volume. The offense is going to improve. Remember, Carson Wentz has been injured as well. I think pieces are going to start to come back together for that offense. I think Jonathan Taylor is a huge target in all formats because he should be a top 3 running back in Dynasty, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that one. I guess the big takeaway from this one is Will Fuller is once again down.
I mean, like a broken finger, what the? It's just the most random injuries. You're like, are you serious right now?
I want to say I told you so, but Will Fuller is just this guy. I don't know if it will ever work out for him, but it was interesting. I did mention Malcolm Brown before. Yes. He had 35 snaps in this game to Myles Gaskin's 12. You can't start Myles Gaskin right now.
No, not at all.
You're just holding on to him and just trying to figure out what's going to happen with this offense because it looks abysmal with Jacoby Brissett back there. Man, yeah, it's not been great. So you can't start Myles Gaskin. Like I said, if you want to take a shot at just kind of rostering Malcolm Brown, seeing what happens here, because it does seem weird. It feels like they're starting to kind of, I don't know, trying to figure out something with that running back situation. So just keep an eye on that backfield going forward.
He's a good goal line back. He had success in the Rams as well at the goal line. He does have a nose for the end zone. He's a big guy. He's powerful legs.
Talent-wise.
I know, but as you said, if you're in a pickle with your running back situation and you're throwing out a Hail Mary trying to get a touchdown, the better bet is on Malcolm Brown than Myles Gaskin to get you a touchdown, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Vikings Browns, what on paper seemed like was going to be a really good game. I was excited for this. I was paying close attention to this one. It stunk. Obviously, the Browns' defense is elite. They troubled Kirk Cousins after we gave him a big, shout out on the previous episode. So sorry, Kirk, that was on us. But Baker Mayfield stunk as well, and he probably missed Odell on 2 touchdowns. And I know Baker's accuracy can sometimes wane, but this was particularly bad. And I was curious, and a couple of different sort of injury specialists in the fantasy world, I think Edwin Porras and someone else mentioned that even though he suffered a shoulder injury to his non-throwing arm last week, or was it the week before, that would still cause issues for accuracy through the rotation of the body and pulling your non-throwing shoulder across. And if that motion is limited or causing pain, it's not surprising that he was off target with some of his throws. And so this concerns me for Odell Beckham. We liked him, especially with Landry being out. We thought he looked good. But if Baker is going to struggle with his accuracy because of this lingering left shoulder injury, it might be better to fade the entire passing game of the Browns until we get some assurity that this shoulder's 100% healed, if it does happen.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. He missed OBJ and a couple passes that were just
he was going to walk
game breakers. Yeah, game breakers. As for the running backs, I'm starting both still. I love Nick Chubb still. Vikings defense actually played pretty solid in this one. Their front seven was really good. Nick Chubb had really nice runs, and they just couldn't get in the end zone. Just got unlucky. Kareem Hunt got in the end zone. Nick Chubb had 21 carries in this game. Kareem Hunt had 13. So I'm starting both of those guys. I'm happy if Kareem Hunt's my RB2.
Yes.
Heck, if they're on my same team, I have them in one league, both of them. So I play
both of them. Play both. Yeah.
It's a no-brainer for me. So don't be worried about Nick Chubb or obviously you're not worried about Kareem Hunt, but stay the course with Nick Chubb.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The Falcons and Washington football team, Cordero Patterson went nuclear. I think he scored 3 touchdowns in this game. He looked incredible. And the easy cliche takeaway is so Cordero Patterson, he's not going to be able to sustain this. Right, yeah. Of course. But what are you selling them for? Because everyone's thinking about this. I'm looking at the flip side of this coin. If everyone's all sell high on Cordero Patterson, surely the flip side of that is it should be a buy low window on Mike Davis, because he's still getting more. He's running more routes. He's getting more carries. Now, obviously, Patterson's a more dynamic athlete than Mike Davis, but this offense is slowly starting to gel. And I think Davis can still put up low-end running back 2 numbers, which is where you drafted him, and he's getting the opportunities to do that. And they're using Patterson sparingly as an offensive weapon. It's almost like they don't want to ask him to do too much, and they want to bring him in to spell Davis. And so I still think that Davis is, because people have soured on him dramatically. I think you can get him for a bag of chips and a lollipop at this point. And unless someone is really willing to overpay in a league for Patterson, particularly if they need a running back and he's got double position eligibility on whatever platform you're playing on. Otherwise, I'm holding Cordero and just getting it because he cost you nothing. He's riding in your flex, and we've seen the upside that he's got. Even if he tanks and gets a few, he's probably going to get 8 points on a down week out of your flex point. You're yeah, okay, I'll take that. And I think we're going to see this offense continue to improve. I think Kyle Pitts gets more involved. He's been used primarily as a wide receiver. Calvin Ridley has been disappointing, has basically the same usage that he had last year when Julio Jones was out. So his workload was projected correctly. It's just that his average depth of target has come down and the offensive touchdowns have come down as well because Matt Ryan doesn't look great. So maybe that's a small sample size, but I think this offense does get a little bit better. And that's why I think you should buy low on Mike Davis and hold Cordero Patterson, because when everyone says sell, it automatically means that the market is not going to be there for you, right? So I think just clicking him and putting him on the trade bed, being come and get Patterson, everyone's going to be saying the same thing. So unless you've got a very naive owner in your league, I don't think you're going to get good returns on Cordero.
All right, I'll give you a name that you should add is Curtis Samuel.
Yes.
He played 25 snaps in this game. He was 4th out of the receivers. He ran 13 routes and had 4 targets, but I think that was just kind of ramping him up here. He's going to be Adam Humphries is getting 45 snaps. I expect Curtis Samuel just to take all those snaps. Not all those snaps, but I expect him to be the one that has 45 snaps. Right behind Trey McLaurin. And I'm sure he'll creep up into the 50 snaps kind of range, and depending on the game, obviously. But I think Curtis Samuel's a good speculative add right now.
I agree. He's an absolute burner. He's great with the ball in his hands. A very dynamic playmaker. And he had a knee injury. He was on IR. They're bringing him along slowly. I think he had COVID twice as well during the offseason or something like that. So he was slow getting up to speed after the team signed him in free agency and gave him that big contract. So I do like Curtis Samuel. The team obviously values him. Ron Rivera knew him from his time in Carolina. So I think all the signs point to him getting involved and getting good usage. And I've just seen that Logan Thomas is going to be out at least 4 weeks. Now, I'm not rushing out to get Ricky Seals-Jones. So I think they move away from how they were using Logan Thomas, who was dynamic, and I still think Adam Humphries has a role to play. But I think between Curtis Samuel and De'Ami Brown, I think some of these guys could be worth getting in your lineup sooner rather than later.
For sure.
Bills Texans. You nailed it. You nailed your stream here, man. Dawson Knox, and he should be added in every single league, and he's only on 50%, just over 50% owned in ESPN leagues after last week. He's getting a bunch of targets. He ran the most snaps out of any pass catcher for the Bills. He scored touchdowns in back-to-back weeks, and he was second in targets last week behind only Stephon Diggs. He's carving out a role. Everyone's healthy around him, and the team is still looking to Dawson Knox. He's a great red zone weapon, and he's got the upside we've seen. But even in games where he goes 4 for 50, it's still low end tight end one prediction. You're fine. You're Gucci. You're so he should be owned. And if you haven't got a top 5 tight end, you should be playing Dawson Knox pretty much every single week.
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, Dawson Knox, obviously taking that step forward and kind of being like that under radar guy, especially against the Chiefs this week. That should be a shootout. So Chiefs played 0 defense, and I still think the Chiefs should be able to score a little bit. So I guess the other takeaway, I'll try to go to the other side. There's not much to take away from this game. I saw that Anthony Miller was released today. They're expecting Danny Amendola back this week. So Anthony Miller's out, even though he was second on the team with 5 targets last week. It's Brandon Cooks or bust on this team. And
that's it.
I think if you find an owner that's Brandon Cooks, kind of they're over it, they want to jump off the train, pick them up, because obviously the situation will get better. Hopefully Tyrod can come back soon. That would help things along a little bit, but yeah, he still had 7 targets. You know, it was just always going to be a tough matchup against that Buffalo Bills defense. Tre'Davious White, secondary.
On the road, bad weather, Davis Mills, tough Buffalo defense. It was always going to be a nightmare, and yet still 7 targets. He's maintaining an elite target share over 30%. Every week we're going to say the same thing. Go and get Brandon Cooks on your roster and get him into your lineup, because good things will happen when you do that. Moving on to the Saints-Giants game. My takeaway here, it was pretty brutal, and you know I was heavy on Ingram throughout the off season. I touted drafting him a lot. Unfortunately, injuries really didn't work out the first few weeks of the season for him, and in his first game back, you know, they just eased him in slowly. But he was out there for 45 snaps this week. I think he had 4 receptions on 6 targets. He ran a route on 29% of his snaps. They even tried like a jet sweep with him, which was a complete disaster. But they're trying things. And Daniel Jones has exceeded my expectations. I'm low on him, and to go in and get a win on the road in New Orleans is no mean feat. So I've got to doff the cap to Daniel Jones there, and also just Evan Engram I think will end up being a fantasy starter. Maybe not next week, but maybe from the week after. I think you're going to get some low end tight end 1 games out of Evan Engram moving forward.
Yeah, it was pleasant to see. Obviously, the Kadarius Toney sighting. I'm not biting on that yet. He's making a lot of those rookie kind of like moves where he's like, oh, I'm just going to try to keep trying to get like, you know, I'm trying to break something here when there's nothing there. But he did have like the highlight play that everyone shot on Twitter, and it's like, cool. But it is. I mean, there was a John Ross sighting in this game as well.
John Ross alert, baby.
So everyone's Colin Johnson love kind of went out the window there pretty quickly. As for the Saints, it's just super ugly. Looks like Tony Jones got injured in this game as well. So now we're looking at Dwayne Washington. Gross. Alvin Kamara is just getting carries galore, but it's just gross work right now for the Saints offense.
Gross work, and they should be using him so much more in the passing game. It really hurts to see that he's, you know, getting 4 targets a game.
Yeah, I think they're just kind of biding time until Michael Thomas comes back. When he comes back, I expect him to just get peppered with targets.
Oh, he could be a league winner. if you were able to get him at reasonable cost and you've had him on IR, my goodness. The other thing I would do is take a look at everyone in your different leagues who has Michael Thomas at the moment, because they might be desperate and they might need a starter. With all these injuries, you might be able to get Michael Thomas quite cheap. They've held him for this long. If you can go and trade for Michael Thomas before he's activated, I would certainly do that, because this offense needs a spark. It needs a receiver. Well, Michael Thomas could get 10 targets a game for the rest of the season once he's back. Would not surprise me at all. So that's something I would encourage. Next game, Eagles Chiefs. This was a fun game, and I think the big takeaway for me is just pounding the drum again on Jalen Hurts. Like, he will have up and down days as a passer. I think he's a great leader. I think he's going to be a good quarterback for this Eagles team moving forward. I'd be surprised if they got rid of him based off of what he's shown. Of course, we don't know. We can't predict the mind of NFL GMs and owners, but he is an every week starter, top 5 quarterback. Like, he's averaging 8.5 carries a game, 60 rushing yards per game. And even if the passing isn't there, which it was this week, and they continue to throw it into garbage time against the Chiefs, this team will be in shootouts, not great secondary. I think there's lots to like about Jalen Hurts. And Zach Ertz is a in deeper leagues, amazingly still hasn't been traded to the Buffalo Bills. He's getting a few looks every now and again, and Hurts overthrew him on one, which was a walk-in touchdown as well, which would have made the week very different. And it may be like 16-team leagues, or if you've got to start two tight ends, or there's a super high premium on tight ends, you could do worse than playing Zach Ertz, because it seemed that Hurts does look for him from time to time.
Yeah, and I guess I don't think Pat Mahomes, I heard this on another podcast, but I don't think he's capable of throwing a normal touchdown. It has to be like it's got to like be behind the back, or it's got to be underhand.
This is going to come back to bite them, I think, at some point. I think this cheekiness is going to come back to bite them in a big spot. But damn, it's fun to watch.
Definitely, and obviously on the Eagles side, I don't quite agree with you on Jalen Hurts. Like, I think he's doing well, like, as far as stuffing the stat sheet, but as like pure quarterback stuff, like NFL stuff, I don't know, man. I think we might see Minshew at some point during the season. I would not be surprised if that was the case.
I would be shocked if we saw Minshew for anything other than injury, but
okay,
who knows?
I think, like, I really honestly think, from what I've seen and what I've heard, I think the fantasy community and the like real life NFL community are kind of split on him, because he definitely puts up fantasy numbers, like, there's no doubt about it. And that's why he's I'm trying to trade him in one league. I'm trying to get like Lamar Jackson or someone like that to see if someone will bite, but I think they're a little bit smarter than that. But Miles Sanders, yeah, I hate Miles Sanders.
Oh man, this Kenny Gainwell looks good. Kenny Gainwell looks good.
He does.
It looks like the Miles Sanders ship is sinking well and truly to the depths of the ocean at this point, which is sad. Yeah. It's sad for me. I know you're ambivalent towards it.
I am.
Corey stood on the side of the ocean with a life jacket, looking at Miles Sanders, being like, I could give it to you, but I don't know if I really want to. Cowboys Panthers. This game was fun. Sam Darnold blew up this week. DJ Moore had a blow-up game. But we talked about it. There's been obviously wild takes on Zeke back and forth. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I think we both agreed that better days were ahead for him. It wasn't always going to be the Tony Pollard show. Both were going to be playable. Zeke's peeled off a couple of back-to-back games. He's looked good, but there's also been some plays where you think prime Zeke, if he was truly the same guy that he was in his first few years, would have taken some runs to the house, but he's still a tough inside runner, especially with that offensive line. But for me, the sell window on Zeke in Dynasty is just wide open right now, and you'd be a fool to not take it unless you've got a roster that's taking you to a championship. But it's like I would sell Zeke for 2023. That's draft picks. Maybe like I reckon you could do a 2023 1 and a 2. Maybe try and position yourself to get a run at Bijan Robinson or one of the other top running backs in the 2023 class.
Look at you spitting out Devi stuff. Love it.
But I think you could do that because people are more happier to give up picks a couple of classes ahead. And I'm no running back scout or anything like that. I just know people are getting real hyped about this 2023 running back class. And people might feel better about giving a bit more up if they don't feel like they're giving away their immediate future as well in Dynasty. But in terms of redraft, I'm riding Zeke all the way to the bank because this offense looks great. The offensive line is playing well. Dak looks electric. The rest of the passing game didn't do, at least the wide receivers didn't do all that much. And the running backs, get this, had no targets in this game. No targets to the running backs. So I don't know if that was a schematic, intentional thing or it's just the way the game shaped out. But the tight ends, again, had a day. They were able to target the Panthers there. Amari Cooper left the game with a hamstring injury, came back. Fortunately, scored a touchdown to save his day. But better days ahead for CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. But for me, Zeke, sell window open in Dynasty, take advantage of it, and in redraft, keep riding him. Keep getting those running back 1 numbers.
I think CeeDee Lamb's a buy for me right now, both in redraft and Dynasty.
100%.
Go out and try to get him because he's had, 2 subpar games back to back. This one kind of hurt. He only had 4 targets in this game. Dallas was never going to, Prescott ended up having a good game, but I think he only had 15 completions in this game or something like that. So the receivers were always going to have a tough day in this situation. Obviously, Zeke was crushing them on the ground. So if you can get CeeDee Lamb, try to get him this week. This is the week to try to get him.
Totally agree. All right, let's pick up the pace here. It's my fault for rambling on a little bit too long on these. So 49ers Seahawks, for me, the big takeaway is play Trey Sermon this week. He got 80% of the opportunities last week, started to look, had a couple of decent plays, but Trey Lance is going to play this week, it's looking like, because Jimmy Garoppolo is hurt, and this may be the sliding doors moment. We look back, and this is the moment that Trey Lance became the starter and really made the offense of his own. He made some plays. He had some running the ball.
He's a rookie quarterback.
He's a rookie quarterback with limited experience. But we're talking in this scheme, they're going to scheme up some easy completions for him, and he's going to run the football. But he's also going to open up the running game for Trey Sermon in this instance, and they get a very nice matchup against the Cardinals, who are just a middle-of-the-road run defense. So Trey Sermon could see some big plays this week. So start Trey Sermon.
Yeah, and it's, as I stated at the top, add Alex Collins if you can get him. Sounds like this Chris Carson neck injury is a chronic injury, so it will flare up from time to time. It's not going away. So I think he's a good speculative add at the moment. So grab Alex Collins where you can, because it sounds like Chris Carson's probably not going to play tonight. So
that's tonight. I'm all over the place the days of the week, so I need to remember to set my lineups.
This morning or whatever
you're
watching the game.
Wherever you're watching it. I agree. All right, let's move on. Packers and Steelers. Add Randall Cobb.
Yes.
That's MVS has landed on the injured reserve. He had 2 touchdowns, but interestingly, he was second in targets on the team. Rodgers specifically requested him. He's going to play from the slot. I think he should see some more snaps moving forward, and Rodgers is going to look to get his guy involved. You saw those celebrations. He was happy. So add Randall Cobb.
Definitely. Robert Tonyan, I think you can move on from him. I'd rather just play the streaming game. I'd rather have Dawson Knox. I'd rather
eat broken glass.
Right. So Robert Tonyan, farewell.
Yep. It was nice to know you. Broncos, Ravens, Teddy Bridgewater got a concussion in this game. We're not sure if he's going to clear the protocols in time. If so, it would be Drew Lock, which is probably a downgrade. Downgrade for the offense, downgrade for Noah Fant. But on the other side of this game, the Ravens, Hollywood had a bounce back game. And I was very encouraged by this because he had two maybe 3 drop touchdowns in week 3. So to see Lamar go back to him, to see him snag a touchdown on a real nice catch, actually, it was very encouraging to see. He is going to be an every week starter, even when they activate Rashad Bateman. I think that's going to be good for him. Rashad Bateman is a very good wide receiver. I think he's going to be very productive in this league. I know. You're a fan of Bateman being a Gopher, Minnesota Gopher there. Yeah. So I think it's going to be good things for Rashad Bateman if you're able to stash him. But Hollywood Brown is someone that I'm just locked into my lineups every single week because he's got the potential to go absolutely nuclear.
Yeah, obviously Tyson Williams had some issues in Ravens practice that past week. He didn't play.
Do we think this was them sending a message like, you need to get your shit together? We've got the veterans. We're gonna lean on them here.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was definitely some of that. I think there must have been something that happened for him not to just be on the radar at all. So
because he looked the best back. Yeah,
right.
Maybe he was. Yeah, right. Something must have happened because anyone with eyes could see he was the most dynamic runner, the guy who looked like he was most likely to make something happen. Latavius got the carries here, got a touchdown, but the legs look old. The legs look heavy.
On the touchdown, he looked pretty good, though, to be fair. But yeah, definitely. And both those Broncos running backs are playing really well right now. Mm-hmm. As much as people want to kind of throw Melvin Gordon in the trash, he still looks. He's doing it. He's doing it. He still looks good.
He's doing the damn thing. I'll be interested to see as we get close to the trade deadline, though. Maybe they look to move on from Melgo if they, this. I know they started 3-0, but maybe they get their record come week 8 is if they're below 500 potentially, especially with Drew Lock now, depending on what goes on with Teddy Bridgewater. This could be an interesting spot to see what the Broncos do with Melvin Gordon if a team needs a running back, which plenty of them do at the moment. Patriots Buccaneers. This was all kinds of emotions, all kinds of things. Tom Brady back in Foxborough. Nice little video. Bit of a scrappy game. The weather wasn't good. It came down to the final drive. Donk field goal. Bad decision by the Patriots to kick the field goal. But my takeaway from this is play Rojo dead pretty much. While Gio Bernard is out in terms of the pass catching backs, I think you can play Leonard Fournette. It'll feel gross. It always feels gross, but he is using the passing game, and he's a better pass catcher than Ronald Jones. And so I think playing Fournette feels dirty, but you can do it.
It does. I think I talked about it last week a little bit. I think Kendrick Bourne's a speculative ad in deeper leagues. I still think he looks the best as like kind of still has that like spring to his step when he on routes, and he's a little bit crisper. So he's an interesting ad as this Patriots offense continues to try to figure out what it's going to do. And looked like AB was very involved in the passing game. Don't worry about Chris Godwin. All those guys are fine. Feel free to play them whenever you want.
Yeah, both tight ends scored here, but neither of them outside of that would be startable based off of their, 3 receptions, 14 yards for Jonnu, and 4 for 32 from Hunter Henry. Both of them going to be touchdown dependent moving forward. And finally, the Emperor's New Clothes that are the Las Vegas Raiders have slowly been revealed. We didn't trust them as an elite team. I thought the Chargers put a bit of a beat down on them. The scoreboard was closer than what the game actually was. Justin Herbert looked great. But for me, the big takeaway, go and trade for Mike Williams if you can. This was his first down week. It was in a primetime game, all eyes on, and Williams did nothing. I think he had 1 reception. So people might be feeling a bit badly about that, might be a bit annoyed, going to be hesitant to start him this week. Go and get Mike Williams on all of your teams if you can, because this offense is firing.
Yeah, it really is. And Eckler probably had his best game of the season. He looked really good in this one. Obviously, he went to the tent for a little while, so everyone was holding their breath, but he ended up coming back in and finishing his game. Donald Parham showed up, my favorite 6'8" tight end.
That's it.
He had a touchdown in this one. So the Raiders' offense just kills me, man. It just really does. So I think you just have to kind of ride it out and see what happens. I mean, Darren Waller's been getting targets. I mean, he's gotten 7 targets last 3 games. This is what it is. Like every team knows that he's the number 1 target, so they're going to try to take him away. So he's a tight end 1. He'll
Hunter Renfrow has got some value as well in deeper leagues as a flex play. He's cooking DBs with his insurance sales tactics. I don't know what's going on, but Hunter Renfrow is a really good slot receiver. It's crazy to see that someone with his build and apparent athleticism is that good. It's really fun to see. But that was it. That'll do us for the games from last week. Let's review our streams from week 4. Quarterbacks. I somehow landed on the quarterback 1 overall for the week with Sam Darnold against the Dallas Cowboys. He rushed in for 2 scores, 33.54 points against your Kirk Cousins, who really struggled and just had 11.12 points. But the tight end, you got me again. I went for Tyler Conklin, fucking 5.8 points versus Dawson Knox, who was the tight end 2 on the week with 20.7 points. Absolutely crushed me. I'm yet to get on the board with a tight end win. So Corey, who are you looking at as a tight end streamer for week 5?
For week 5, tight end streamer, I'm going with CJ Uzomah. Nice. The Bengals are playing Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions do not have a good defense.
They do not.
We're not sure if Mixon's going to play, and I could see them tossing the ball around a little bit here. So I'm taking CJ.
I like it. I'm going to go with Dalton Schultz, who's had a lot of usage in the last couple of weeks. Great offense, and they're going against the New York Giants, whose defense isn't much to write home about as well, especially against tight ends. For the quarterback streaming, I'm going with Justin Fields at the Raiders. Again, I don't think the Raiders are all that much chop, and I think Fields, his day looks entirely differently if he just gets a couple of passing touchdowns. He's being used in the run game, and I think he's going to take another step forward. He's got receivers, and I think with David Montgomery out as well, they might look to put a bit more on the shoulders of Fields in what seems to be a pretty decent matchup here. So I like Justin Fields this week. I was weighing up between him and Trey Lance, but I think Fields just looks like a bit more polished passer at this point, which is why I've gone for him. Who are you taking?
I'm taking Zach Wilson against the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons defense is putrid. Zach Wilson's got his highest passing yard prop already. It's at 242.5 yards this week, which is the highest it's been all season long. So I'm taking Zach Wilson to get me 275 and 2 touchdowns in this one.
That could get it done. That could get it done indeed. And he will be able to move the ball up and down the field against the Falcons, no question about that. That could be a bit of a sneaky shootout. Maybe this is the week finally we see Kyle Pitts break out. Maybe we see Mike Davis get a bit of success. Who knows? But that'll do it for this week. Don't forget, it's probably too late if you listen to this because for Thursday Night Football, but good luck with your Thursday Night Football matchups. Good luck with your matchups this week. But that'll do it from us. Make sure you follow The Vault Studio on all the social media platforms, patreon.com/The Vault Studio if you want to support the podcast. Corey's on Twitter at CMoney52. I'm at FF_Down_Under. But for wrapping up with our week 4 review, week 5 preview, that'll do it. And we will catch you next week. Peace.